Department and Agency Subcommittee is now in session. Today's Tuesday, March 2nd, 3 p.m. So glad to have everybody. It looks like we've got a full house. We've also got a full calendar. So we're going to get right into it. Lisa, call the roll, please.
Vice Chairman Keesling.
Yes.
Beck.
Here.
Bricken.
Here.
Carr.
Here.
Carringer.
Present.
Chisholm.
Present.
Halford.
Here.
Chairman Holsclaw.
Present.
Chairman Holsclaw, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Committee members, do we have any personal orders or announcements we'd like to make? Seeing none, we're going to take up the calendar today, and first one on the list is HB 0557 by Speaker Marsh. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're ready to roll.
All right. HB 557 was brought to me by the ABC Alcohol Beverages Commission. This bill will allow a closing business the ability to transfer leftover alcohol inventory to the new owner or another business the seller owns of the same license type. Upon the closure or the sale of an existing business, it will require a 10-day notice to the Tennessee ABC and the Department of Revenue, which includes a detailed inventory list and the date of the transfer. This will help streamline the closing process for buyers and sellers while ensuring leftover alcohol inventory is safely monitored. I didn't know this, but now the way it presently is, if you sell a restaurant or you sell a liquor store to someone else, then you've got to send the inventory back and start over again with a new business. So this will just allow you to transfer your inventory over to the new owner or to a new business that you personally have. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Speaker. And you read my mind. That was going to be my first question was, what was the current practice? So that addresses that issues. Yeah. Any other members have questions, comments? You are recognized, Chairman Keesley.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it. Speaker, what happens to that the product that is relinquished back to the what did you say, to the distributor or the wholesaler?
Yes, sir. What will happen if we pass this now? It'll just remain in the business. The new owner will take possession of it. Of course, they'll be paying the former owner for the inventory. What happened before, if the distributor or the wholesaler didn't want it back, then you had to just take it home with you, or they said you could give it to a charity, things like that. So it was a real mess.
I got it. That was my question, and thank you for the answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions, comments? Seeing none, question been called without objection. We're now going to vote on House Bill 557. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Bill moves forward. Congratulations, Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
We're going to go a little bit out of order here on our calendar. I've been requested that number 4 be taken up, 1046 by Chairman Zachary. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You are now properly before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, many of you will recognize this piece of legislation as it passed out of this subcommittee and the full committee last year. This is a issue Speaker Sexton is passionate about, so I appreciate him championing this issue. This simply requires that no-bid, non-competitive contracts be submitted to fiscal review for our review. We don't vote on those. There's a mechanism that gives us the opportunity for additional review and additional information to provide, but this just simply is a transparency bill asking that all no-bid, non-competitive contracts come before our committee for review. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So I reckon, the bottom line of this bill is keeping the fiscal committee in the loop and informed of what's going on.
Yes, sir. Yeah, again, this is just simply about transparency. We don't have to take any action. This is just simply for us to review those no-bid, non-competitive contracts just for complete transparency.
Question's been called on the bill without objection. We're now voting on 1046. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Bill moves forward to full.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Okay, we're back on item number 2. House Bill 0742 by Leader Lambert.
Mr. Chairman, before we get a motion and a second on this one, I noticed that Chairman Vaughn is here, and given the importance and gravity of his piece of legislation, and hopefully the fact that it is non-controversial, I only learned about this bill today, but I fully support it. Mr. Chairman, would you take him up ahead of mine? I know it has some testimony, and I hate to keep the chairman.
I can put you to the end if you would like.
Not totally to the end, just one more down. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your graciousness to offer to put me to the end, but I'm not quite asking for that. If we just take care of Chairman Vaughn.
Per his last request, item number 5 on the calendar, 442 by Chairman Vaughn. You are now recognized. And now you are properly before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Leader, for that courtesy. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. Let me introduce you to somebody. Trevor Joseph. He was 33, graduated from Houston High School in Collierville, passed away Thursday, September 26th. He was graduate of University of Tennessee, where he was commissioned as a medical services officer. He was commander of the Cajun Dust-Off Medevac unit in Fort Polk, Louisiana, at the time of his death. During his 11-year career, he was deployed twice to Afghanistan. He was awarded multiple honors, including the Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal, Air Medal with Valor in Combat, 2 Army Commendation Medals, an Army Achievement Medal, a Parachutist Badge, a Combat Action Badge, Senior Aviator Badge, and he was one of 4 soldiers honored for Rescue of the Year for heroism in Afghanistan. Imagine your 33-year-old wife. Your husband passes away. Wrecks your world. You're trying to do what's right. You're making funeral arrangements, and as a 33-year-old, you're taking into account his buddies on base, family members from across the country, as well as former schoolmates and colleagues. You're ready to make your funeral arrangements, and you say, wow, the optimum time to do this is obviously on a Saturday afternoon, so people won't have to take leave, and people will not have to be able to travel a little better. Imagine you make arrangements with the state of Tennessee, veteran cemeteries, and they say, well, we'll be happy to inter your loved one as long as it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. At that point in time, they said, due to extraordinary costs and the fact that our processes are placed into the books for reasons, because we don't want to be doing this for everyone. This is the most efficient way to do it. Well, being a person who wants to be a man of action for my constituents, I had community leaders that said, we would love to bear the extra costs for this family. This is very important. We were denied. Even though at that point in time, the commissioner in play had it within the statutes to make that decision. So what we decided to do was, we think some things are important enough that we don't leave it to people's discretions. We put it in the code. That's what this bill does. This bill allows for family members to have people who were killed in action serving our country or the Tennessee National Guard to be interred at the family's request, whatever day of the week that may be, provided they're given 72 hours notice. That's the bill.
We appreciate your passion for this, and you know they deserve everything they can get, in my opinion. I'm all for you. So we have questions, comments on the bill. You are recognized, Chairman Carr.
Thank you, Chairman Vaughn, for bringing this. I believe we spoke about this on the House floor.
We did.
We couldn't do anything, and I have several members that are buried at various ones down on John Sevier Highway and some other places. So this is the least that we can do, is to honor their wishes, and not everybody can get off on a Monday through Friday. Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman.
And I would like to say that my father was a veteran. He passed away when he was 83. It's far more for having an aging family member when they pass away, it's a little bit easier to structure the times and dates, and their peers can deal with it a little bit easier than we can folks who are in active duty. And that's what this does. We're not throwing the whole system. What we're doing is we're codifying the fact that sometimes we need to do the right thing as opposed to the cheap thing.
Got recognize Representative Carringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say thank you and how embarrassed and how sorry I am that this family and this widow has had to go through this. And so I just want to say I'm very, very sorry. I'm very sorry for the state, from the state of Tennessee, that something like this would happen. And I just want to thank you, and as I want to echo what Representative Carr said, we should make available any time of the day and any day of the week for these families that are having to go through something like this. So thank you.
I'm hopeful that, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm hopeful that we will be able to, that y'all be able to meet the Joseph family. Anyway, I'll hush.
Hang on. Other questions, comments? So question has been called on the bill. Without objection, we're now voting on 442. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Moves forward to full committee.
Thank you for your gracious handling, sir.
Do you think we're taking up item 2 now?
I'm hopeful, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you can see why I did not want to stand in the way of that presentation.
Oh, yes, I agree totally. Now, on the calendar, item 2, HB 0742 by Leader Lambert. You are recognized. Second, you're properly prepared.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And at the crux of this bill, and I know we'll have testimony today, and I appreciate y'all's patience with the folks that are testifying. This is a big issue, and several years ago, we allowed in law for wineries to be able to ship their wine to customers anywhere, and for wineries outside of this state to be able to ship their wine to Tennesseans here. That's an important part of just kind of as retail kind of changes over time. We felt it was important for wineries to be able to do that. Now, when that bill passed, and I was strongly in favor of it, we envisioned that wineries would be sending their product directly to customers that have requested that. Unfortunately, there have been some third parties that have stepped into the breach that are called fulfillment centers. And some of those are very good actors. Some of those are not. And they are completely unlicensed. They are completely unregulated. And this bill says that you cannot utilize a fulfillment center of that nature. It is a very straightforward bill. And what that will do, and I know we will hear testimony kind of on both sides of this, but the reason I'm carrying this bill is that I am concerned, as a small business owner, my whole family's always been small business owners, that when you have a large fulfillment center that has someone's complete customer list, handles their marketing, and handles their distribution, they have the complete ability to destroy that small business at any second that they want to by cutting them off. They've got their entire customer list. They're shipping their product. They can ship what was requested or not. I mean, they can leave it laying in the warehouse or out in the sun for a few months and then ship something that completely ruins your product. It is literally turning over your entire business to these fulfillment centers, and again, completely unregulated, completely unlicensed. Now, if done properly, they can handle some of the logistics and everything else and just handle basically kind of the online orders. They do way more than that. And some of these fulfillment centers will even take just large bladders of wine from wineries and fill the bottles and put the labels on themselves. I mean, they're literally getting into the manufacturing of this. This is not what we envisioned when we permitted and encouraged our wineries here to be able to ship their own product. That's what I want to preserve. I want to preserve wineries to be able to ship their own product, but not allow these large third-party companies to be able to just completely take over our small wineries here in Tennessee. That is the bill.
Thank you for your explanation. And like you said, we have presenters on both sides. I think at this time, we'll go out of session. I'm going to allow each speaker to have 5 minutes to state their case. So the first one to come up, let's go out of session, will be Russell Thomas. And you'll have 5 minutes to state your case and what you'd like to say. If you would, speak into the mic and state who you are and who you're with, okay?
Thank you, Chairman Holtzclaw. My name is Russell Thomas. I'm the Executive Director of the Tennessee Alcoholic Beverage Commission. I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I wanted to spend just a few minutes sharing an overview with the committee of some of the facts and laws surrounding this bill that can hopefully help put things in context and help you look at this bill as other speakers come forward. So just to pick up and give a little bit of a general overview of the laws that we're talking about in Tennessee, as Leader Lambert mentioned, a number of years ago, Tennessee created a license called now called the Winery Direct Shippers License. That is a license that gives a business, a winery, the ability to sell wine and ship that wine directly to a consumer in Tennessee. This can be a Tennessee winery, this can be a California winery, any winery in the United States. It is a special exception from the three-tier system that allows a winery to skip the wholesale tier and sell directly to a consumer in Tennessee. So a few years ago, this body passed a statute that required common carriers, FedEx and UPS, those businesses that are actually delivering that alcohol in these cells, to begin submitting reports to the Department of Revenue, who shares that with us. And those reports list all the shipments of alcohol that FedEx and UPS ship into the state of Tennessee. So just to give you a feel of kind of what are we talking about, what does it look like in the real world. So from those common carrier reports that we've collected for about 2 years now, I believe it started in July of 2018, we have seen over those 2 years an average of about 300,000 shipments of alcohol into the state a year. Those report the weight of each shipment. We see an average over those first 2 years right around about 6.8 million pounds of alcohol being shipped into the state. And those reports show addresses where those shipments originate from. And in the first year of that reporting, there were about 3,700 separate addresses from which alcohol was shipped into the state. That number shrunk down a little bit in the second year, but well over 2,500 still. So it can be difficult analyzing that data. You look at those reports and sometimes you see addresses that don't make very much sense. It says something like it was shipped from NW9 Reserve with a street address and city. Doesn't necessarily match up with a known company name or winery name. We also noticed that there would be slight variations in name. There wasn't reporting consistency. So it made it pretty difficult to analyze the data that we were presented. But we started to see some trends that I think are helpful to point out and put some things in context. While I said there were over 3,700 different addresses that shipped alcohol 1 year, in that same year, roughly a third of them had one shipment or less. So we'll start to see a trend of a smaller number doing most of the volume of shipping. Another thing we noticed pretty quickly is that when you look at how many different addresses shipped alcohol, you start with 3,700 distinct addresses, but pretty quickly you notice that only about, I say only, it's still a lot, only about 450 had more than 50 shipments. So we analyzed the numbers, played with it a little bit, and ultimately we determined that really by looking at volume, combining addresses that clearly came from the same business, that there are really about 200 distinct entities, businesses, wineries, that account for over 90% of the alcohol shipment in Tennessee. And we measured that a couple of different ways. We took that about that list of about 200 entities that we identified as the top volume shippers and cross-reference the number of shipments they made and the pounds of shipments they made. Either way, you come up with about 91, 92%, just over 90% of the volume.
You're reaching your 5-minute limit, so.
Okay, well, if I could beg the indulgence of a couple more minutes, I think I can wrap it up,
Well,
and I think it
wrap
could
it
be very
up
helpful.
quickly.
You look at that, what do you see in those numbers? Well, you do see a chunk of what you would expect. You see shipments that come from wineries. You see a recognizable winery name or address that matches up with a winery license. And of those top 200, over 100 of those are wineries. But that's not all you see. You also see about 40 entities that some people refer to as fulfillment houses or third-party logistics companies, other companies that are providing services to wineries that may be packaging, et cetera. And those are the addresses where FedEx and UPS are picking up alcohol that's showing up on those reports that go to consumers in Tennessee. And of those, about 40, when you look at the volume, they're really processing well over half of the shipments of alcohol into Tennessee. So I think that's important for the committee.
Okay, we're going to shut you down right here, and we're going to ask some questions maybe.
All right, go right ahead.
Members, we have questions, comments? Mr. Beck, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Thomas, thank you for being here. And just a couple of questions that I gleaned from your testimony. First of all, what is the fee for a direct shipper's license?
In Tennessee, direct shipper's license has a $150 annual fee.
So that's not a high barrier for wineries that want to
Correct.
ship into the great state of Tennessee, correct?
Correct. It is significantly lower than many of our other license fees.
Are there any other states that have outlawed these fulfillment centers or third-party services like is proposed here?
I am not aware of any states that have specifically outlawed that. There are some states that do not allow any shipment of alcohol to their state.
We've been inundated with information and calls and contacts concerning this legislation. By using these fulfillment houses or third-party services, have tax collections of sales tax and any other taxes for the state been lost by people using these fulfillment houses?
Our commission does not gather that tax, so we do not have that data. I think that would be appropriately addressed to the Department of Revenue. But we do know how many pounds of alcohol come into the state. I suppose that the department could look at what the average weight of a case is and compare that to the tax data that they have, the gallonage tax data, to make an estimate of how much should they collect from how many pounds of alcohol they see coming in and how much did they collect on a prior date. Discussed that with revenue, and they indicated that could very well be an issue, but I would defer to the Department of Revenue for that question.
That's out of your wheelhouse, in other words?
It's out of my wheelhouse.
Okay.
Out of my lane.
Lastly, we've had a lot of concerns about the effects of this bill as written on our Tennessee wineries. What effects would this bill as written have on our Tennessee wineries?
Honestly, the first time I read this bill, I didn't note anything that I thought would affect the Tennessee wineries. I would say that I had a conversation with some Tennessee winery people yesterday that raised some concerns that our commission has now taken a second look at to delve into a little more. But I'm not aware, and this I would defer to our Tennessee wineries to answer this, but I am not aware of any of them using fulfillment houses. I think their concerns is more in the first part of the bill, which doesn't necessarily address fulfillment houses, but what wines a license holder can ship. I think their concerns are related to that part of the bill, not necessarily the fulfillment bill, but I would defer to them to answer that.
Okay, we'll talk to them when they come up. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We've got several others wanting to ask questions. Representative Chisholm, you are next.
Hey, how you doing today? Thank you for coming here today to speak with us. Does this bill prohibit a winery from selling alcohol?
It does not. No, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Bricken, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've answered a couple of the questions, and again, Representative Beck's question, and I certainly would like to get revenue to talk about this gallonage tax to see if what we might be losing in that particular tax. Kind of a general question in kind of the history of I guess whether it's wine clubs or going out to California and finding a winery you like and have them shipped directly to you in Tennessee. Certainly, back in the day, that made sense, and I think that was the impetus for the original bill to allow Tennesseans to do it. And I always thought it was limited to what I thought was 2 bottles and no more than a case a year. But correct me, is it up to 3 cases that a citizen can get per year here in Tennessee?
I believe it is 9, let's see. I believe that's correct. I believe, and then a monthly limit.
Okay. Now, if that's roughly 3,000 shipments in, do all 3,000 of those shippers pay the current shipping license fee?
We currently only have about 900 winery direct shipper license holders in Tennessee.
Would those other people are shipping just non-licensing? I mean, are they subject to the license or under do they have to reach a certain threshold before they have to be licensed to ship into Tennessee?
You have to have a license to ship any amount into Tennessee as a commercial sale. Again, kind of digging into the big trends and the numbers, about 200 entities are shipping about 90% of the volume. Of those, over 100 are direct shipper license holders, winery license holders. A big chunk, however, are these third-party logistics companies, and they are doing a huge volume. So nationwide studies show that they handle about 60% or more of the total volume of shipments. And a shipment that comes from that fulfillment house address, it could very well come on behalf of a direct shipper licensed winery. It may not. The reports that we get alone don't answer that question.
I was trying to relate the 6.8, I guess, million pounds of, I guess it's wine. It's all wine, right? Into cases. I don't know if anybody's done the math. I'm just curious to know the actual volume that's coming into Tennessee, because obviously it's bypassing the retail and the wholesalers, and if that volume grows, obviously that's the issue that we're addressing here. And I mean, are these wine shipments now just becoming online retail outlets? And I mean, I think that's a crux of what we're dealing with here, and it's certainly a real concern, because where does it stop? How does it just continue to keep mushrooming? And how do we and we're not going to put the genie back in the bottle, but no pun intended. But we need to do something here.
Just to follow up on your prior question, it is 9 liters a month and 27 a year is the limit.
Okay.
Took me a minute to find that.
Thank you.
Representative Carr, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And you may have already answered this question when we talked about revenue, but I noticed that one thing you brought up, that MPX, or one of you said at one time didn't go to a certain address or whatever. It's a little weird coming in. would you say that, and I'm just asking, would that be an illegal, would you think that would be maybe an illegal shipment and didn't pay tax or something, or do you know, or?
That specific example and similar examples, through our investigation, we were able to determine was associated with a fulfillment business, a third-party logistics shipper. And it is currently, it is not illegal for a licensed winery to use the services of one of those businesses. So when we see that type of address in the common carrier reports, we don't know by looking that alone. It could be a shipment on behalf of a legal licensed winery. It may not be.
Okay. So I guess getting back to my representative from Coffee County down here, with all this that's coming in, we don't really know what the volume, well, we do know what the big volume is, but the volume may continue to rise. But what we're trying to do right now is for the local shipper, the local wineries, and they have their own license to ship in. Is that correct? If they're so licensed.
Tennessee wineries can obtain the same license of out-of-state wineries and ship pursuant to the same conditions. And we have a good number of our Tennessee wineries that do that here in the state.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Probably one of the bigger concerns I have as far as when someone orders these wines is there a signature required, and how do we keep this out of underaged kids, if you will?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. That's a good question. The current direct shipper statute does have some requirements as far as that goes. 57.3.217 requires that the wineries only contract with common carriers that commit in that contractual language to only make delivery face-to-face, confirm age, and obtain a signature. So the law does currently require that when a delivery is made, it should be made face-to-face. The age of that person receiving the shipment should be verified, and that person should sign for receipt of that delivery.
Okay, that's what's stated. Is that happening?
We run compliance operations to check that.
On the fulfillment places or on the, you actually do a sting on this particular type operation?
So we have run a number of operations in this world, and one of the things we have run is ordering, placed orders from all avenues that we can find to place orders from and check those shipments. And that includes looking at the highest volume shippers that we can associate an internet retail site with and placing an order and seeing what happens and checking that. And sometimes that is shipped directly from the winery. Sometimes it comes from a fulfillment center. So we run operations where we try to purchase wine. These are all internet sales, and then we check various things in that delivery. We check, are they complying with those requirements, face-to-face delivery, confirm age, get a signature. We also run some operations to make sure they're complying with the 9 liters a month, 27 liters a year volume requirements.
Other questions, comments? Representative Bricken, we're back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on friends and some personal experiences, the common carriers, and I'm not sure if it's a lot of COVID, but they certainly are dropping off and hitting to the truck as fast as they can without signatures. So it certainly seems to be happening. One question I forgot to ask earlier was the concern of, and I asked you if you have had complaints from citizens receiving, one, products that they didn't want, or products that were falsified and not what they thought they were going to get. So I just like to get that on the record if y'all have gotten complaints along those lines.
I can't speak to that off the top of my head, but I will certainly double check with our agents and and get back with you if they know of any of those.
Thank you.
Representative Beck, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a little confused here, Director, which is easy to do for me. The 3,600 addresses that you said were the approximate number that were shipped from, but you only have 900 licensed shippers. Is that what you testified to? Where did the 3,600? Shouldn't there be a license for each one of those? That's where my confusion is.
So, of those 3,600 distinct addresses, within that, a distinct address could be a name spelled differently. Sometimes it may have an extra space between two words or put together, as the computer identifies as not the exact same alphanumeric data point, 3,700 different ones. So there's quite a bit of manual labor involved to go in and analyze those addresses and group them together. So with some computer and manual labor looking at those numbers, many of those may be a same business that the computer at first glance sees as a different address. And particularly with some of the fulfillment companies, some of those weird addresses, the MX9, maybe they have some internal record-keeping process that generates a slightly different wording in that first line of the address code. That takes us some work to go through and kind of look at that and say, okay, how many of these are actually coming from the same place? And that can be quite a task with this volume of addresses to analyze.
Okay, so what you're saying is we don't know that it was actually 3,600 separate addresses. The computer just tells you it's 3,600 different directions.
Well, they
addresses.
are 3,700 distinct first line say something different in the address of that spreadsheet.
Okay. All right. So do you think that there is unauthorized shipment going on, or you do not think that with the 900 licensed shippers and the 3,700 different addresses?
Well, over the last 2 years, we have, through our education and enforcement efforts, we have seen a good number of wineries become licensed that were not previously licensed. We have investigated wineries and other entities that have made illegal sales. So we certainly do see illegal shipments in our investigations.
Okay, thank you. Myself, like Representative Bricken, I have had, somebody sent me some wine, it was left on my front porch, no signature, we weren't even at home.
So that would be in violation of the statute. We've run operations, and if the common carrier fails to do that, they could be, well, if it's in one of our operations where a minor goes out and picks that up, they could be charged with a misdemeanor offense of delivering alcohol to a minor.
Okay, that's one of the questions I had for you. Whose responsibility is it to get that signature and check that age ID?
So similar to how we handle enforcement at bars and restaurants, we look at it as a full circle of responsibility. The business that profits off that transaction, the individual that is on the scene, that hands that over to a minor, all bear some responsibility. So in an example of something like that, but maybe one of our operations with a minor, we would issue a citation to that direct shipper license holder, and we would charge the individual who provided that alcohol to a minor with a criminal offense.
So the shipper is who is liable, and then the driver would have the criminal offense. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Lastly, going back to our local wineries, some of them use bulk wines in their for wines that they don't grow. They bring in, my understanding is bulk wines. Would that be affected by this bill in any way?
Well, Section 1 of this bill deals with the type of wines that a license holder can ship. Not necessarily, it's separate and apart from fulfillment houses, and it gets to that concern of somebody getting this license and using it to become a de facto wine retailer on the internet and sell and ship 1,000 different types of wine, not just their own. So if the way this is written, it says it would what I would describe as limit the brands that may be sold by a license holder to brands that you make. And it says that it has to be wines that they produce. When they've raised some concerns that they feel that might cause a problem there. That's something that just recently came to my attention. If it does cause a problem, I would think that some minor tweaks in that language could alleviate that concern. But I would need to look at that a little bit further. I actually asked, when they raised that recently, asked one of our staff lawyers to look into that a little bit more.
Did you get an answer?
Not yet. We're
And-
still looking at it.
Piggybacking off what my neighbor here asked, is there any, how will this affect, or will it affect Tennessee wineries and their ability to ship wine? Is there any effect, as the bill is written, to ship the wine, ship their product?
Other than the issue you just raised in Section 1, I am not aware, and I would, again, defer to our Tennessee wineries, but I'm not aware that any of them use a fulfillment company model in their distribution currently. They could better answer that question.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, comments? I have one last one, and thank you for your due diligence in this. Is we were just talking about as far as dropping it off without signatures and fines and responsibilities. Do we have one documented case where we've issued a fine to a delivery company?
Such as FedEx or UPS?
Yeah.
No, sir, they are not licensed, and so we don't have a administrative way to assess them a fine.
So we have a problem, but nobody's addressing it?
If that delivery driver sells to a minor, we have charged them with a crime.
Okay, but
They are not, neither the delivery company nor that driver has any license or permit from us, so there's no mechanism for us to issue them any type of fine.
so they can just do it and get away with it, is what you're telling me.
Currently, there's no mechanism for us to fine FedEx or UPS. We can charge their driver with a crime. We cite the winery. Those are the only tools we have under current law.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony, and we'll proceed on to the next presenter.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
If you would, Don Collier, please get up, state your name and who you're with, make it clear.
Group in Sevier County, and we're the largest producer of Tennessee wine in the state, and we have 48 farmers under contract from Jackson, Tennessee to the Tri-Cities that provide product to us, and we buy 54% of all the grapes grown in Tennessee for our wine production. I'm also here representing the Tennessee Farm Wine Growers Association. I've been a member for 31 years. And this bill is, there are some issues as the director of the ABC has issued, but our main objection was that no one consulted our industry about this bill and how this bill should be drafted to prevent damaging Tennessee wineries. The issue is that last year there was a crop failure in Tennessee because of a late frost. 62% of the grape production in Tennessee was frozen out. The Tennessee wineries were faced with 2/3 of loss of their crop. We were forced to go out of state to get product. Now, if you know this is going to happen ahead of time, you can go on the spot market and get grapes. But if you don't know it, then you're forced to go into the bulk wine market to make up for the shortfalls. And so if you can't get grapes, then you're forced into the bulk market. You get the bulk wine, and as this bill is currently written, we can't ship our products to Tennessee because it doesn't meet the content requirement. And we can't control the weather, and we just can't shut our business down because there was a frost. If we're trying to grow an industry in Tennessee and provide a livelihood to the farmers and another cash crop for the farmers, then we've got to have the ability to stay in business. Otherwise, you're going to lose all the wineries. So we're opposed to that. And this bill is overly broad. That it appears that they have tried to plug every hole possible, regardless of what it does to the Tennessee farm and wine growers. And we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. This bill will hurt our industry. There are 69 wineries in Tennessee, 348 farmers who grow grapes for the industry, and this bill is going to hurt them. There are 12% of the wineries in the state are large enough to work around these rules and regulations being added to us. The rest of them don't. 55% of the wineries in the state are less than 10,000 gallons. And the definition of that is 10,000 gallons is break even. And so these people are at break even. If they got paid minimum wage, they'd get a wage increase. You know, they're 100 hours a week. It's a mom and pop operation. But that's what bootstraps your industry. The little guys start out, they're small, they grow up, they get big, and then they prosper. But if you damage them in the growth stage, if you deny them $1, and we're talking not a lot, but I'm just saying, you know, if you're 10,000 gallons and you're break even and you lose $5,000 worth of shipping, who's paying the light bill? And I'll shut up and let you ask questions because I'm sure you've got a lot.
The first question I would ask is on your bulk wine. So you have catastrophe over here and you lose 75% of your grapes. So you go out to one of these other states and buy wine and bottle it and sell it as your own, or?
Well, what we try to do to keep consistency in a product is if you're short 10,000 gallons, then you try and buy 10,000 gallons and blend it with what you have so you can get a product that's fairly approximate to what you have. It's not just that you're going to substitute something for it, because that damages your product line and your customers saying, hey, what happened? You know, I'm used to this flavor from you guys, I'm not getting it. So you try to blend and work it out and stretch it to where you can get a fairly consistent product of what you normally produce so your consumer is not upset about the change in the product. So that's basically it. I mean, it's not a complete replacement of the product. We're just trying to stretch what we have. But because the content law is what it is in this, then we can't stretch it. It's got to be all or nothing.
Okay, committee members. Chairman Keesley, you are recognized.
Just one question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Collier, sorry. I wrote down and placed this in quotations. We can't and this is what I understood you just stated earlier a few moments ago. We can't ship our products to Tennessee. Did I understand you correctly, or did I misunderstand you?
Under the proposed legislation that has a content requirement in the bottling and production, that would bar us from shipping in Tennessee. because our content is no longer within the law.
You're talking about percentage-wise
I'm talking percentage, yes, sir.
versus what's grown here versus what you add into it, content-wise.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Bricken, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just kind of follow up on Chairman Kiesling's statement. There are, if this bill could be amended for those percentages and other aspects affecting Tennessee wineries, y'all would be okay with this legislation?
Yes, I mean, we pay our taxes, and we want everyone to pay their taxes because they're our competitors. So to hear that people are shipping wine into Tennessee and not paying the taxes, well, that's a slap in the face to us. But it sounds like it's an enforcement issue because the current laws outlaw it. You don't need a new law. It's already illegal to do that. So it may be a manpower issue for the ABC or a lawyer issue, but I have gone to, in my 31 years, to 7 TTB conferences on regulations and rules in the industry. And at every one of those conferences, someone is always complaining about state laws that are squirrely, and it's a Commerce Clause violation and all this stuff, and they want TTB to do something about it. And TTB has every time, this is through 5 separate presidents, both parties said the same thing. If you violate state law, you jeopardize your federal license. So if you've got a list of people who are doing this, then you can contact TTB and ask that their license be revoked. There are over 12,000 licensed wineries in the United States today. And the TTB will take action against anyone that violates state law, especially if you can prove it is an ongoing issue.
Just one follow-up
Continue on.
question. Just of the wineries in Tennessee, do you know what percentage currently use a wholesaler to redistribute their product to retail?
There are only 8 wineries in the state of Tennessee that use wholesalers.
Okay.
Now, on like your winery, what percentage of on-site sales do you get versus what you ship out?
We're blessed in that we're in a tourism area in the Great Smoky Mountains, and so we get a ton of tourists in. And we basically sell out the door to them 95% of our product. And 5% we ship to members that we sign up at wine clubs. And so this issue, these are out of state, but now when we say that, Nashville is our number 3 market up there. And the Tri-Cities is our number 8 market. So we get a lot of Tennessee people come up there. And we have a lot of Tennessee people sign up for our wine clubs. And we ship to those people. But we ship under, we have a direct shipper's license like everyone else is supposed to have. And we pay our taxes.
Who do you use for your shipping? I mean, as far as distribution of this wine.
We have 4 wineries there that have a wine trail, and we have over 100,000 people a year go on our wine trail. And we market through that wine trail.
Okay, but when you direct ship, as you just said, who do you use? I mean, what?
We ship it ourselves.
Okay.
Because we've got sufficient size to do it.
Who carries it? I mean, you do your own truck? You ship it to each individual?
We ship through FedEx.
Okay. That's what I was
Like
getting
the
at.
common carrier. Now, another problem with this bill is the fulfillment. The way it's written now, if you use a fulfillment house for any of these services, shipping, compliance, then you are prohibited from including that in your business model. Now, it's not just the shipping law, because this also includes opens Chapter 57, which is your winery license. So in effect, this bill says if you ship to Ohio and you use a fulfillment house in Ohio to handle your wine club, then you can't have a Tennessee license.
Okay, as you've been, your Tennessee license, that, and then you get back to using FedEx, and I'm trying to figure out something here. Is there any validation of when they deliver that? Do you all have something in process that checks that process, that validates, hey, I got a signature and it was over 21?
When they come to our website and they place an order,
Okay.
of course, obviously, if they're in our wine club, then they've been to our premise. We've ID'd them when we sold them the products there. And so when they join the wine club, we know they're 21. If they order it, then it's on there. You got to be 21 to order it.
Okay, but that can state anything. I mean,
Yeah. We also pay FedEx an additional fee to get an adult signature.
Okay, do you get notification and you get that signature back?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, so there's no validation to that. You're just paying a fee for them to do
We
it.
pay an additional fee for a signature. It's on the box that contains alcohol, adult signature required. You can see it 10 feet away. We do everything that's required under the law.
Okay. But there's still no validation to the, complete validation to the process.
No, FedEx does not respond back to us for that. Now, also on the fulfillment house issue, we don't have to do that to use the fulfillment house because we are of sufficient size to hire compliance people on site to do these things. As I said, 75% of the Tennessee wineries do not have the ability to do that because they're tight on their money. So basically, it's them doing the compliance homework. So any regulatory burden you put on that, then you put it on them. They work the fields, they work the store, and at night they do their paperwork. So they're giving up sleep for every time you pass a rule on them. Now, if you want to be in compliance with the law, and the Tennessee wineries want to do that, then you hire a fulfillment house to do the compliance part. Not necessarily the shipping part, but the compliance part. But there is no distinction in this law from if they do compliance work for you, then even though they don't handle the shipping of your product, you're hit with it because you're not allowed to use compliance work by a third party. So again, you make the wineries staff up a full compliance department.
Chairman Halford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just out of curiosity, sir, if I'm a small winery and I want to deal with a fulfillment house, how do I get my product to him?
Product to the fulfillment house?
Yes.
You would ship it on a FedEx or a UPS.
So you ship it how? I mean, what kind of quantity? Do you ship it in large quantities or do you ship it in bottles or what?
Well, we ship it in bottles, and most fulfillment houses that I have heard of, or people who do compliance work for you, some of the compliance houses don't touch the product at all. You tell them who you're shipping it to, and then they tell you, okay, we'll take care of getting the license for this state. We will take care of paying all the taxes in this state. You will pay us that amount of money, and then you will pay us a fee for doing this. Now you ship it to them, and we do the shipping. There are different kinds of compliance houses and fulfillment houses all over the board.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what the difference is in me shipping direct to a customer and shipping to a fulfillment house.
Well, if you want a direct shipment to a customer in all 48 states, you've got to have 48 licenses. You've got to have sales tax data for every locality, and you've got to do it. And no state has the same form. Like we just sent off a report to Florida that was 13 pages and a check for $212. And you say, okay, but that's their form. And it's got to be done by hand because that form disagrees with Louisiana's form because they've got it in their fields differently. And so you've got to do that by hand and we just sent Louisiana a payment, 18 pages, $712. And so if you're going to ask mom and pop to sit up and fill out 48 of these every month, then They don't
So,
pretty much have a life.
but you
I
could,
mean,
you
it's-
could
it's
choose
pretty
not
tough.
to, not to do the whole 48 continental states. You
Right,
could,
you're
you could
right.
choose to do
And we only
3,
ship to
and
24.
that's my district.
And so the beauty of that is that the fulfillment house that's doing the compliance work for you is you don't have to do that. All you got to say is, I've got 9 people in Florida. Get me a license in Florida. Tell me what taxes I owe, and I'll ship it down to them.
Thank
And
you,
then
Mr.
I'll pay
Chairman.
you a fee.
Representative Chisholm, you're recognized.
Oh, they're telling me that we can look up our FedEx files. This is Rhonda Moody. She's the president of the TFWA, the Highland Manor Winery, and she said you can look up the signatures from FedEx where you require a signature. I believe that was your question. We can confirm that we got a signature.
Has anybody audited that or looked at that to verify? I mean, that
Did we verify their
100%.
signature matches the signature on the credit card?
well, I mean, just
you,
the
Rhonda?
verification it does happen. That it does
Yes,
happen.
if we can, if we have a package that goes out, it's requiring a signature, then we can go online and look at that and say, okay, FedEx said Nancy Johnson signed for this package. We can look and see, is Nancy Johnson our wine club member, our credit card customer? And yeah, but the signature looks different. Was Nancy in a hurry or what?
I'm not so much, that I'd like to get down to that detail, but I know there's packages been delivered and thrown and alcohol or wine and there's no signature, it's just dropped and run. So I reckon.
And I agree. That is, you're depending on FedEx to have a trained driver deliver the package. And does that always happen? Probably not.
Okay. Representative Beck, you are recognized.
Very quickly, what did you use the acronym TTB? What is that?
That's the Federal Tax and Trade Bureau, which is the old replacement for ATF, which
Okay.
is alcohol, tobacco, firearms.
Thank you. Does this bill affect your purchase as a winery of bulk wine from in-state or out-of-state?
It does not. All it prevents you doing, if you can't segregate your wine, then it could prevent you from shipping in Tennessee. If you've got 20 tanks and you bring in product and you've got 10 products, and some of it is Tennessee product and some of it is out-of-state product, if you can't segregate it, if you don't have enough tanks to segregate it, then it would be dangerous for you to ship to Tennessee. You might be violating the law. That tank might be qualified, or it might not be, depending on if you blend it.
But your purchase of that bulk wine, whether from in-state or out-of-state, is not affected by this bill. Is that what you're saying?
It is not. It just affects our ability to ship our product in Tennessee.
And what is the definition of a vino shipper?
Well, Vino Shipper could be classified as a fulfillment house, but basically what they do is, and most of the Tennessee wineries who need compliance help use Vino Shipper. And basically Vino Shipper says, you give us a list of what's going where, and we will send it to them, and we will remit the proper amount of tax to the localities in all these states that you're shipping to, and you will pay us a fee for doing this for you. They don't touch our product. We ship it straight. But under this legislation, Vino Slipper is considered a fulfillment house, and we could not use them. We would have to do it ourselves, even though they're not touching our product. We're talking about adulterated products coming in and out. This is bottled products that we're shipping. And this is because you're not allowed, under this bill, you're not allowed to use a fulfillment house for compliance work. You can't use them, even though it's not in Tennessee. This would apply to our shipments to Ohio, Florida, Texas. We can't use a compliance shipper because it's defined as a fulfillment house.
So let me get this straight. With the vino shipper, they never actually have your product.
No, they do not.
They're just doing your compliance work, basically. Is that correct? And you think that under this bill, you would not be allowed to use that vino shipper?
Because this bill opens up Title 57, and wineries, there's a lot of licenses under 57. The bill doesn't say 57, I forget what it is, 57203 or something, which is a shipping law. If it exclusively only stated throughout the entirety the shipping law, then it would solve some of the problems. But when you open Title 57, that is the winery license, the shipping license, the distribution license. We have got several licenses we can get in Tennessee, but they're all under 57. So if you just stick to the one section you're talking about, which is the shipping in Tennessee, and don't mention our winery license, then it doesn't affect us. But they have broadened it out to where it encompasses our regular license. And that means we can't do it in any state in the nation.
Okay. We're going to try to move on here a little quicker. We're eating up a lot of time. Representative Chisholm, last question.
All right. Well, I have two things. I'm going to play devil's advocate first. If I'm a Tennessean that owns a winery in another state, with banning the fulfillment houses, how would it affect?
Excuse me, sir, I didn't hear you.
If I'm a Tennessean that owns a winery in another state, how would banning the fulfillment houses affect them?
If you're a Tennessean and you own a winery in another state, you would be required to get a shipping license in Tennessee. You'd be treated as an out-of-state vendor. You would not have to have a Tennessee winery license. You would have to have a Tennessee shipping license.
Okay. Well, to me it sounds like we have some wiggle room somewhere here in the middle. So, at the wheel of the chair, how do you all feel about getting this to full and having both parties have a conversation?
We'll wait on that when we go back in session. We thank you for your time,
Thanks, sir.
Collier, and we'll now go back in session. Sponsor number 2, please. HB 742. We have questions for the sponsor. You are recognized.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Brigham.
Yes, sir, and I apologize. I didn't get down here requested. You took me completely by surprise. I am back down here now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For our leader, you heard the testimony. Certainly, several issues were raised, certainly primarily affecting Tennessee wineries. We'll work some of the issues with the ABCs and maybe for another day. But would you address how we can resolve those issues?
You are recognized,
Thank you, Mr.
Leader
Chairman.
Lamb.
And in fact, this bill already resolves some of those, and I appreciate the testimony today, but I'm not sure why it was in previous testimony just the code was referenced, because this bill does more than just open up the code. I mean, it specifies what a fulfillment house is. It doesn't deal with companies that just handle compliance. I mean, it says specifically, fulfillment house means an in or out-of-state entity other than a winery that handles logistics, including warehousing, packaging, order fulfillment, or shipping services, and it goes on from there. But, I mean, it defines what a fulfillment house is pretty clearly. I was a little surprised. That's the first that I had heard that we had Tennessee wine that's being sold as Tennessee wine that is not from Tennessee grapes. I don't know how to solve that because, quite frankly, I'm a little disturbed by that. I get that that may be something that happens within the industry, but if it's being stamped as Tennessee wine, if it's Georgia grapes and North Carolina grapes, I'm a little concerned by that. So that's the first I've heard of that today. That may be a conversation that's a larger conversation. We've had that conversation on other products that are stamped as Tennessee products, but I was a little concerned about that. I didn't know that was an industry standard to intermix other types of grapes into a wine that is sold as Tennessee wine. I will say the ABC numbers are very concerning. I mean, it shows that there are a large number of shippers that we cannot identify as a winery that are shipping wine into this state. We have no idea if they're paying the taxes. We have no idea if they're actually going through the proper protocols. and we can't hold them accountable. I mean, they can't find these folks, they don't know who they are. If a winery, which is exactly what this body passed a couple of years ago, is shipping to a customer, which is what we want those wineries to be able to do that, that customer knows who to hold accountable, and we know who to hold accountable. If they're not getting the product that they ordered, or if, quite frankly, that winery is playing fast and loose with our laws. So these fulfillment houses that are in between, I am always open to work with anybody. I am merely asking for your support today on this bill. But like all of you, when you're carrying bills, I will absolutely keep the conversation open, and we'll meet with anybody on ways to improve this. I will state clearly and concisely, there is no intent on my part and no intent on the language of this bill to keep a winery from shipping their wine. None, zip, zero. So if there's some sort of clerical, technical change that we need to make sure they can ship their wine, even the issue with kind of intermingling other grapes, if there's a way we can address that, nobody's comfortable with it, I don't mind. But I would deeply appreciate your support and yes vote today for this.
Representative Beck, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leader, I was very confused when I read the fiscal note. I've never seen a fiscal note exactly like this. Due to multiple unknown factors regarding cannibalization of sales and current capabilities of companies to adapt to their logistical chain and other unknown numbers of potential licensees affected by the proposed legislation, any physical impact would be undetermined at this time. Mm-hmm. So what this is stating, we don't know if this is going to affect the bottom line for the state. Is that it? Am I interpreting that correct?
You are recognized.
I think you were exactly interpreting this properly, and we've been here for many years together, and that's the whole issue we're trying to resolve with this bill. It's the Wild West with these fulfillment houses. I mean, nobody's watching the store here. Nobody's keeping an eye on exactly what they're doing. They're completely unlicensed and unregulated. None of them are here in Tennessee, and they can do pretty much whatever they want to do, and it's outside of our purview or the ABC's. So minus literally having a spot check and camp out on your doorstep like the wine that was dropped on your doorstep without a signature, there's literally, I mean, almost no way that our fiscal review folks can indicate whether or not this will have a positive or negative impact because it's just kind of the Wild West.
I would think it definitely have a positive impact from a standpoint of revenue, tax revenue.
Second question is, if we do pass this out today, are you committed to working with our local wineries, our Tennessee wineries, and getting this acceptable to them? And what about this Vino shippers that they were talking about, where their product isn't actually touched like at a fulfillment house, but it helps them comply with other states? Would you be willing to work with that?
You're right.
Absolutely, and Representative, I see that as more of a technical change on this. It was no intention to actually get in between anyone and their compliance officers, compliance folks. It's, again, the fulfillment centers that are acting as a warehouse, a distributor, a retailer in certain instances. That's what this bill bars. I absolutely am dedicated to continue to work with our Tennessee wineries to make sure there's no negative impact on them, so long as anything that would change after this committee, and I'm very dedicated to the committee process and out of respect for the chairman, anything that would change, I would run by all of y'all if I'm fortunate enough to progress beyond this committee today and make sure y'all are fine with it on any changes that would happen. It would need to be small changes, but I'm all ears and want to help our Tennessee wineries.
And my second question is, originally this had the spirit of, if you were in Napa Valley and you love that wine and you wanted to get it shipped to you, that this shipper's license, that's what it was all about. So are you committed to make West Coast and other places are taken care of, so that these people who are crazy about these wines that they can't get anywhere else, they can still order them from those small wineries?
Quickly address his.
Yes.
You are recognized.
Yes.
There
Yes.
you go. Representative Carr, you've got the last one, and you better do it quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think I see where this is going. And let me say this. I want my Tennessee wineries protected. And Mr. Collier can correct me if I'm not correct, but I think we've got about 16 wineries or so in Sevier County, probably more than anybody. And I understand from a conversation I had, we're probably going to get 2 or 3 more. So with your promise that you will get with them and work something out, because remember, Mr. Leader, and you are our leader, but you come back before this committee again, okay? So I just want my Tennessee wineries protected. Basically, what I'm saying is I do want Sevier County protected. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I've never do anything that hurts Sevier County. You fight valiantly for them and have for 9 years now since we've been serving together. I will say the upper part of this bill, Section 1, is remarkably similar to the bill that was filed a year ago. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm done.
You can add words to it for sure.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. No other questions? We are prepared to vote. Those on House Bill 0742 in favor of, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. However, before I hammer this out, I want all parties to get together and come to some common ground, just like Carr and the rest of them said. And then my biggest concern is the signatures and validation, that we just don't just start dropping this off at houses, okay?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Moves on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Now, number 3, since he's waited so patiently, HB 0769. You are recognized, Chairman
Thank you, Mr.
Reagan.
Chair and committee, and I'm glad to be before you after that lengthy process because I have a 2-line bill.
And we're glad it's 2-line.
Straightforwardly, what this bill does is remove a restriction that is currently in place for veteran services officers to be combat veterans. Okay, right now, that limits the number of people, and we have places that need veteran service officers in our state that can't comply with this. There are veterans available, they're not combat veterans. So this bill simply removes that requirement. It's still a requirement that they be a veteran. With that explanation.
Questions been called? Those in favor of House Bill 769 say aye. Aye. Opposed? Bill moves forward.
Thank you, committee and Mr. Chair.
Item number 6 on the calendar, House Bill 339. Chairman Jarnigan, you are recognized. And we had a motion and second, and help him out there, guys.
Yeah, my microphone was excited. Okay.
You've got a motion and second. You've got a motion and second on your bill, but you do have an amendment?
I do have an amendment to make sure.
Okay.
3763? Is that correct, Chairman?
It's 3763?
Yes, sir.
That is correct. And the amendment makes the bill, is that correct?
It does, no, the amendment does not make the bill.
Just-
There's other parts on the bill.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Explain your amendment,
okay.
Chairman
I have a-
Jordan.
I have a motion on the amendment. I'm good? Okay. So this is a technical amendment. It's actually requested by the ABC to clarify it. So it clarifies that the Wild Horse Saloon, which holds a restaurant license, will pay the higher limited service restaurant fee during any year. Can they not talk behind me? Thank you. Which for, the restaurant during any year when gross revenue from the previous year derived from food sales is 50% less than the gross revenue of alcohol sales. It's very technical. I can go into a detailed explanation of the amendment, but that's an overall view of the amendment.
Question been called on the amendment. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Amendment's on the
Okay.
bill.
Great. So, Chairman, the bill's amended. Members, the Ryman Hospitality owns Wild Horse Saloon, Gerald Jackson Showboat, and Gaylord Springs Links, which is in mine and Representative Beck's district. And it's under management agreement with the property of Marriott International. So what this will do was typically the ABC can issue a liquor license to the property owner or the or someone who's leasing the property. This will add managing the property to that as well, so they can request the permit on behalf of the owner. And last, it does have the General Jackson Showboat. The bill will allow Marriott International to serve alcoholic beverages in the dock area inside the gates before they go on the boat. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions, comments? Questions been called. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Bill moves to full committee.
Chairman, members, thank you. It's like 2 minutes left.
Since you waited so patiently, Chairman Ramsey, you're gonna be the last bill we hear. HB 0377. You are recognized.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
This is a cleanup bill from the ABC. We've always had a restriction here that if you apply for a retail package store license, you had to have a residency 2 years. And we had a court case here back in 2016 that the Chancery Court decided that was unconstitutional. At that time, there were 2 people that had applied, and they were threatening to sue the state. So there's been a long string of court cases since then to declare that. And finally, this last year, it was in the U.S. Supreme Court, and they declared it unconstitutional to have that residency requirement. So the ABC has not been acting upon that requirement. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon?
He said you're good to go is what he said.
Oh, okay.
Questions been called on the bill? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Bill moves to full.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Make a motion to adjourn. Anybody opposed? We are adjourned.
Just leave after our 4 o'clock.